Some had been beaten to the point of near death, while others had managed to escape only by changing cities, by severing all ties to their former lives. David, it turned out, had a history of preying on vulnerable women, of using his charm and his good guy image to manipulate and control them. He was a monster, hiding in plain sight. Armed with the horrifying knowledge of David's past, Penny knew she had to tread carefully. She couldn't confront him directly, couldn't let him know that she was onto him. Her life depended on maintaining the illusion that she was still the naive, trusting woman he thought she was. She threw herself into her mushroom project with renewed fervor, using it as a means of escape, a way to maintain her sanity amidst the growing terror. The silent, mysterious world of fungi became her sanctuary, a place where she could reconnect with her inner strength and find solace in the face of unimaginable danger. She learned to anticipate David's triggers, to avoid the topics or behaviors that seemed to set him off. She became a master of manipulation, carefully crafting her words and actions to appease his ego and soothe his insecurities. She even started doting on him, making herself seem more needy and dependent than before. She would ask for his help with tasks she could easily accomplish on her own, flattering his ego and reinforcing his belief that she couldn't survive without him. It was a delicate balancing act, a constant performance that exhausted her both physically and emotionally. She had to pretend to be someone she wasn't, to suppress her fear and her anger, to swallow her pride and her dignity. But she knew it was necessary. Her life depended on it. She made sure never to mention anything she had learned about his past, to avoid any topics that might arouse his suspicion. She tried to act as if nothing had changed, as if she was still the loving, trusting girlfriend he believed her to be. It was a charade, a cruel and twisted game. But Penny was determined to survive. She would play the role he expected. Every day she lived in fear, constantly watching her back, anticipating his next move. She knew that he was capable of anything, that he could turn on her at any moment. But she refused to be paralyzed by fear. She would use her intelligence, her wit, and her resourcefulness to outsmart him, to turn the tables. It wouldn't be easy, but she had to do it. After weeks of careful planning and strategic maneuvering, Penny finally agreed to let David meet her family. She had chosen the location carefully. A sprawling villa with stables owned by her family, far away from Northwood High and David's familiar territory. She knew that introducing him to her family was a risky move, but she also saw it as an opportunity. It would allow her to assess his behavior in a controlled environment, to observe how he interacted with people who knew her well and wouldn't hesitate to protect her. As they drove up the long, winding driveway, David's eyes widened in disbelief. He hadn't expected Benny's family to be so upper class. The villa was magnificent. A sprawling estate with manicured gardens, a sparkling pool, and a stable full of horses. He suddenly felt small, out of his depth. He had always prided himself on his charm and his ability to impress people. But he sensed that Penny's family was a different breed altogether. They were sophisticated, worldly, and accustomed to a level of wealth and privilege that he couldn't even imagine, that he deliberately hadn't associated with Penny when they met, even though there were signs. Despite his initial discomfort, David was determined to make a good impression. He plastered on his most charming smile and vowed to be overly nice, to prove to Benny's family that he was worthy of her. However, his efforts backfired. Penny's family, who were loving and generous people, treated her like a normal person. They didn't coddle her, didn't patronize her, and didn't seem to notice or care about her wheelchair. asked her to help out with the cooking, to set the table, and to assist with other household tasks. David, eager to impress them, immediately offered to do everything for her. But Penny's family gently but firmly blocked him. Penny's perfectly capable of helping out, her mother said, smiling warmly. She doesn't need you to do everything for her. David's attempts to impress them with his knowledge and his accomplishments also fell flat. Penny's family was well educated and well travelled, and they quickly saw through the facade. They recognized his insecurity, his need for validation, and his desperate attempt to prove himself. As the day wore on, David became increasingly frustrated and uncomfortable. He couldn't understand why Penny's family wasn't impressed by him, why they didn't seem to appreciate his efforts to help her. By the end of the day, David was seething with resentment. He felt belittled, emasculated, and utterly out of control. The drive back from Penny's family villa was a stark contrast to their previous car ride after visiting David's family. David, usually so talkative and eager to dissect every detail, was completely silent, his jaw clenched, his eyes fixed on the road ahead. Penny, on the other hand, was beaming with glee. She had seen through David's charade, had witnessed his discomfort and his simmering resentment. She knew that he was seething, that he was plotting his next move. But she was ready for him. She anticipated his need for control, his desire to reassert his dominance. She knew that he would try to isolate her, to punish her for exposing him in front of her family. As they pulled into Penny's driveway, she saw Sarah's car parked out front. Relief washed over her. She had texted Sarah earlier, explaining the situation and asking her to come over. "Oh, Sarah's here," Penny exclaimed, feigning surprise. "I completely forgot we had plans to spend the evening at her place." David's face darkened. He had been expecting to spend the night with Penny, to regain control of the situation. Sarah's unexpected arrival threw a wrench in his plans. "You never mentioned anything about this," he said, his voice tight. "Oh, I'm so sorry, David," Penny said, her voice dripping with false sincerity. "It completely slipped my mind, but I promised Sarah, and I can't back out now." She turned to Sarah, who was standing on the porch, watching them with a knowing look in her eyes. "Sarah, you look radiant," Penny exclaimed. "I have missed you so much." Sarah smiled warmly and wheeled Penny into the house. David watched them go, his fists clenched at the wheel. He knew he was being played, that Penny was deliberately shutting him out. He forced a smile. "Have a good night, you two," he said, his voice strained. "I'll see you soon, Penny." "Good night, David," Penny replied, her voice cool and detached. As David drove away, Penny felt a surge of triumph. She had outsmarted him, had denied him the opportunity to isolate and control her. She knew that he wouldn't give up easily, that he would come back, determined to regain his power. But she was ready for him. Once inside, with the door securely locked behind them, Sarah turned to Penny, her face etched with concern. "I'm so glad you reached out, Penny," she said, her voice low and urgent. "I've been wanting to talk to you about David for weeks, but I didn't know how to approach it." Penny's heart pounded in her chest. She knew what was coming. "I've been doing some digging," Sarah continued, "and what I found is disturbing." She paused, taking a deep breath. 7 women have gone missing in David's past, Penny. 7. He moves around a lot. It's like he's trying to erase his history. Penny wasn't surprised. The information confirmed her worst fears, solidifying the image of David as a manipulative and dangerous predator. I found all this out after growing suspicious of David and looking into his background, Sarah said. I had some free time and was worried about you. Sarah reached out and took Penny's hand. Her eyes filled with concern. Penny, you need to leave him now, before it's too late. Penny looked at her friend. She knew Sarah was right. She knew that she should run to protect herself from the monster that David was. But instead of agreeing, instead of expressing fear or gratitude, Penny said something that shocked Sarah to her core. I can't, she said, her voice soft and delicate. I can't leave him yet. Sarah stared at her in disbelief. What are you talking about, Penny? He's dangerous. He's a monster. Why would you want to stay with him? Penny looked down. Her eyes filled with a strange mix of fear and determination. I know he's dangerous, she said. I know I should leave, but I can't. Not yet. She paused, taking a deep breath. I have to give this relationship everything I have, she continued. I have to try everything I can. Otherwise, I'll always wonder if I could have done more. Sarah was stunned. Penny, that's insane. You're putting your life at risk. You can't reason with a monster. You need to save yourself. I know, Penny said, her voice pleading. But I have to try. I have to see if there's any good left in him. I have to believe that I can fix this. Sarah shook her head in disbelief. Penny, you're being naive. You can't change him. He's a lost cause. You need to think about yourself, about your safety. Penny looked at her friend, her eyes filled with a stubborn determination. I am thinking about myself, she said. And I've decided that I can't live with the regret of not trying. I have to give this everything I have, even if it kills me. Sarah stared at Penny, her mind racing. She knew that Penny wasn't stupid, wasn't naive. She was a strong, intelligent woman who had overcome incredible challenges in her life. And that's what made Sarah so uneasy. She couldn't understand why Penny was so determined to stay with David, to give it everything she has. It didn't make sense. As she looked into Penny's eyes, she saw a glint of confidence, a hint of control that sent a chill down her spine. It was as if Penny wasn't the victim at all, but rather a player in a dangerous game. A seed of fear sprouted within Sarah's heart. She began to wonder if Penny had a hidden agenda, a secret plan that she wasn't sharing. Was she trying to change David? Or was she planning something far more dangerous? Sarah knew she had to be careful. She couldn't push Penny too hard, couldn't reveal her suspicions. She had to play along, to earn Penny's trust and uncover the truth. "Okay, Penny," she said slowly. "I respect your decision, but please, promise me that you will be careful. Promise me that you'll come to me if anything happens. If you ever feel like you're in danger." "I promise," Penny replied, her voice sincere. Sarah knew that it was a lie. She could see it in Penny's eyes, in the subtle shift in her body language. But she didn't call her out on it. His behavior in public also shifted. As people grew accustomed to him, they no longer saw him as the charming, heroic boyfriend, but as just another common man, a regular guy. He blended into the background, becoming a familiar face in the hallways and at school events. This pleased Penny. She wanted him to be invisible, to be underestimated. It would make it easier to execute her plan, whatever that may be. Sarah, however, remained wary. She observed Penny's every move, analyzing her words, her actions, and her expressions. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong, that Penny was walking a dangerous path, a path that could lead to her destruction. One evening, David brought to Penny's attention a minor ache down his spine. David had sought advice and was instructed to book into St. Augustine's for observation and tests as soon as possible. In the meantime, Penny encouraged him to spend his time helping her with her mushroom project. She believed that it would be a welcome distraction, a way to take his mind off his worries and focus on something positive. She also saw it as an opportunity to connect with him on a deeper level, to show him that she truly cared about his well-being. To her surprise, David embraced the idea wholeheartedly. He found the intricate details of the mushroom life cycle fascinating, and he enjoyed the challenge of identifying different species and learning about their unique properties. He and Penny spent hours together in her garden, tending to the fungi, discussing their research, and simply enjoying each other's company. David found their bonding helpful, and the mushrooms surprisingly interesting. The time they spent together allowed David to express his vulnerability. Unfortunately, David's situation took a turn for the worse. His pain intensified, and he started experiencing numbness and tingling in his limbs. His nervous system was beginning to collapse, threatening his ability to move and function. Panicked, Penny rushed him to the hospital. The doctors, alarmed by his deteriorating condition, began running a battery of tests to determine the cause of the accelerated decline. David was terrified. He had always been so strong, so independent, so in control of his life. Now, he was helpless, his body betraying him, his future uncertain. He clung to Penny seeking comfort and reassurance. She held his hand, stroked his hair, and whispered words of encouragement. She reminded him of his strength, his resilience, and his unwavering spirit. "You're going to get through this, David," she said, her voice filled with conviction. "I know you are. You're the strongest person I know. You just need to keep fighting, to keep believing." Penny helped David keep hope, reminding him that she was by his side. She researched his condition, consulted with experts, and advocated for him with the doctors. She became his rock, his advocate, and his unwavering source of support. She visited him every day in the hospital, bringing him books, magazines, and his favorite snacks. She read to him, told him jokes, and simply sat with him in silence, offering her presence and her unwavering love. Despite everything that had happened, despite her fear and her suspicion, Penny couldn't abandon David. She cared for him deeply and genuinely. She wanted him to be healthy, to be happy, to have a chance at a better future. Seeing David so vulnerable and alone in the hospital bed, Penny felt a surge of compassion. She realized that despite everything he had done, he was still a human being, deserving of love and support. She decided to invite her family to come and visit David in the hospital. Her family responded with overwhelming kindness and generosity. They came to the hospital bearing gifts, flowers, and words of encouragement. They sat by David's bedside, offering their support and prayers. They treated him with respect and compassion, as if he were one of their own. They didn't dwell on his past mistakes, but focused on his present struggles and his future hopes. Penny also invited some of their colleagues from Northwood High to visit David. The response was equally heartwarming. Teachers, students, and staff members poured into the hospital room, offering their well wishes and their unwavering support. They shared stories about David's kindness, his dedication, and his positive impact on the school community. They reminded him of his strengths, his talents, and his potential. The outpouring of support was overwhelming. David, who had always craved validation and admiration, was deeply touched by the genuine affection and concern that people showed him. He had always felt like an outsider, a fraud, a man hiding behind a carefully constructed facade. But now, he was being accepted for who he was, flaws and all. Penny held his hand throughout the visits, offering him strength and her unwavering support. She squeezed his hand reassuringly, giving him the courage to look people in the eye, to speak the truth, to be vulnerable and authentic. He realized that he wasn't alone, and that he had people who cared about him, who believed in him, who wanted him to succeed. He felt a sense of safety, a sense of belonging that he had never experienced before. He felt safe when Penny was around. As the visitors departed, leaving him in a room filled with flowers and goodwill, David turned to Penny, his eyes filled with tears. "Thank you, Penny," he said, his voice choked with emotion. "Thank you for everything. You've given me a second chance. I don't deserve you." Penny smiled gently. "You do deserve it, David," she said. "You deserve to be loved, to be supported, to be happy. And I'm going to do everything I can to help you get there." As David's body succumbed to the ravages of his illness. He lost his ability to move and speak, trapped within the confines of his failing flesh. At that moment, Penny held his hand, her gaze unwavering, and saw the love he had in his eyes. It was a love born of gratitude, of acceptance, of a desperate hope for redemption. It was a love that she had carefully cultivated, a love that she now intended to use as her ultimate weapon. She leaned closer, her voice soft and soothing, yet laced with a chilling resolve. I remember when I said you deserved to be loved, to be happy, she whispered. And I meant it. But you also deserve the consequences of your actions. A flicker of confusion crossed David's eyes, but he was powerless to express his thoughts, to voice his fears. Penny continued, her voice growing colder, more detached. After all the heartbreak and mocking I had endured, I decided to work on my mushroom project once again, she explained calmly. I focused on my mushroom concoction that would do very specific things. She revealed that she had created a genetically modified strain of mushrooms with David's unwitting help, that she had slowly been feeding him for quite some time. It had all started after learning about a disabled woman he had hurt and made disappear. The concoction, she explained, had been designed with meticulous precision. First, it altered its host hormones, lulling them into a state of chemical safety, where I then had the confidence he wouldn't hurt me, she began, as David's eyes began to widen, as if trying to focus on an item far away. Secondly, it attacked the spinal column, and nervous system. It entered the brain and slowly shut down the body, just how you made my body shut down. She assured him that the mushrooms were untraceable in his system, so he shouldn't worry about getting caught. Don't you worry about me. I'll be fine. I have Sarah looking out for me. She revealed her final act of cruelty. The reason she had invited all those people to visit him in the hospital. I brought all of those people in to see you at your weakest, she said, a hint of satisfaction in her voice. To have that be the last memory they have of you. She paused, her gaze softening slightly. I meant it when I said I cared dearly for you, David, she said. But I cared for what the inner person you could have been all along, once the mushrooms put the monster to sleep. She paused, letting it sink in. The love she had shown him was not a lie. It was real. It was genuine. But it was conditional. He had ultimately failed himself and all the women before her, had chosen to embrace his darkness instead of his light. You felt the touch of true love and adoration, she whispered. And now your debt is due. She explained the final agonizing stage of the mushroom's effects. The mushrooms will allow you to feel extreme pain. The kind of pain you inflicted on all those women before me, whilst keeping you awake, she said. Such pain that it should give you cardiac arrest. But the hormonal effects of the mushroom stops that. You will exist this way for a while, until your heartbeat betrays you and eventually does you the favor of stopping. Her gaze hardened, her voice filled with a cold, steely determination. Thank you, David, she said. Thank you for being so great and for everything you made me go through. You showed me what I had to do to grow to be the perfect monster killer, and that I will. I'm so proud that you will be able to pay your pound in flesh She leaned in and kissed him on the lips, a final act of betrayal, a twisted expression of love and hate. As their lips touched, she saw the absolute terror in his eyes, the dawning realization of the horror that awaited him. A single tear ran down his face. A silent scream trapped within his paralyzed body. Penny pulled away, her eyes devoid of emotion. Let that be the last sweet thing you taste, she whispered, as she rolled out of the room, leaving David alone in his prison of flesh. She felt a sense of closure, a sense of justice finally served. She had become the monster she had always feared, but she had done it for a greater cause, to protect the vulnerable, to avenge the fallen. The world was rid of David Harrison, the monster who hid in plain sight.